we have a panel coming up of professors. We've got two professors from two different schools. A lot of times people compare PWIs to HBCUs and how they do things differently and equally and the same. So we have a little treat for you guys. Coming up next, I've got my co-host George Lynch, who is, I don't know if we said it earlier, NBA veteran, played for the Lakers, the Sixers, and some other teams, and also went to North Carolina, UNC Chapel Hill. And George brought in one of his former Tar Heel player friends, Michael Norwood, is professional development and career coach in Arters, Carolina, and he also is at UNC Chapel Hill, professor there. And then we've got Harry Holt, who is a professor at Morgan State University and vice president of administration at Biff Group Technologies. So Harry, George, Michael, welcome to Secure the Bag. George, I know you've been here with us all along, but Harry and Michael, welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello.
Thanks for having us, Tracey.
Oh, I like the UNC.
Thanks for joining us, Michael.
We got the two UNCs back there. You in, and then Michael came on with his UNC to represent. So I know this is gonna be fun. I might have to join your side, Harry, with Morgan State. I may have to represent and go to that. Although I'm a true Tar Heel, I'm a Tar Heel born and bred, but we can't let it be so uneven. So thank you all. And George, I know you and Michael are friends. Y'all both played basketball at Carolina. I guess we can kick it off with questions from you to Michael.
Okay, yeah. Since I'm also working on my LinkedIn page, and Michael, I think I asked you a question earlier. What photo is the best photo to present on your LinkedIn page or profile?
All right. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I mean, the LinkedIn, I can go through. I thought it was really interesting. Tiana and Allie really set us up. They talked about networking, and I've got a little something on LinkedIn I could breeze through real quick too. We keep talking about networking, but how do you network? And so I can run through that for a second. I'll answer your question with, add one or two. I'll share my screen if that's all right. All right, so George, you asked about the pictures, and I have a professional photo and I just took that with my camera and a remote with the portrait in the background. It's no big deal. But also with this, you want to kind of soft sell your interest. And the one thing about LinkedIn, and like I said, I've been sitting here listening to everybody, it's networking, but it's also, you want to have your own brand. And my brand, it's Carolina basketball, but it's not basketball. It is learning leadership, because I played for Coach Smith. It's learning teamwork. It's learning, the value of how to, to make sure everybody feels valued on a team, things like that. So LinkedIn, your resume kind of tells you what you've done. LinkedIn does a little bit more about who you are. And so you want to use that to sell your brand. And we all want to do it now, social media, interviews, things like that. So about your question, professional photo in the small, something as a soft sell in the background.
Awesome. Okay, so thank you for that. And Harry, are you with us, my friend? I would love for you to come on and answer, what does securing the bag mean to you? How can HBCU students learn from what, I know we use the term a lot and we say, oh, I'm going to secure the bag, but what goes into securing the bag?
Well, to me, I think it's important to think about, you're sharpening your toolkit. You're preparing yourself to secure an opportunity that you're seeking. So, I mean, you're going to be, working towards your goals and objectives with confidence. You want to really be confident about what you're going after. So for me, it's about getting your education and being really confident about, the information that you have, and you're really preparing yourself for greatness so that when you go into the interview, you're prepared, you've gotten your information, you know your background, you know the company, and you really believe in yourself and that you're going to go in and secure whatever it is you're trying to pursue.
Got it. And I have a question for both of you, and then George can take the next question. what are some of we're still on the networking theme here. So what are some of the professional organizations or just ways that students can network and get more resources? Post-COVID, I know we're still kind of in a framework where we're not all back out and meeting and greeting as much as we used to. So how can students network online and or join what organizations, whether they professional or otherwise, would you both of you recommend students joining so that they can enhance their opportunities and networking?
Michael, you want to go first?
Yeah, that's fine. That was a good question. So I'm actually, again, I'm going to go back. I'm trying just to show you. I'm going to put you on the spot here, Tracey. Here's Tracey's LinkedIn. But your question is, how do I network? And your LinkedIn is a really perfect profile. You know, professional photo, interest. But when you talk about networking, the one thing you want to do on LinkedIn, the way to network is your interest. All right. So here's people that you follow, but probably more importantly, especially for students, is groups. Here's the groups that Tracey's interested in. So, you know, social media, esports, things like that. Or the schools. If I'm a graduate or if I'm at Morehouse College, I want to be on LinkedIn and follow this group because that's almost 35,000 people you can network. If I'm at Grambling, here's 26,000 people. So you want to do, and you know, if you want to work at Microsoft or Cisco, follow them. And then that way, you know, that's a way through LinkedIn to meet people that you would never meet. And when you go to, you know, again, LinkedIn is a really good thing for looking for jobs. It will tell you, if I go to look for a job in finance or sports media, or whatever, it will pop up how many Carolina people work there. So I can click on these names and I probably don't know them, but then you could reach out and go, I'd like to connect with you, add a little something in the box. You know, I saw your name, you work for ESPN. I think it'd be really interesting. You could reach out to them. And again, the speakers before us made it, you know, they were talking about networking, talking about reaching in. You're not going to reach out and go, I need a job, I need an internship. You're going to say, I want to learn more about your company. I want to learn more about how you got in your position, because everybody loves talking about themselves. So if you go, you know, I see you work at Microsoft and you're a junior manager, I'd love to know more about, you know, how you got there. People love talking about themselves. And the one other thing, when you're doing that, it's better to look for young alumni when you're looking for jobs. Because if you're emailing me or my colleagues that are 50, 60 years old and they're the vice president or CEO of Wall Street, they haven't hired anybody in 30 years. So you're better off looking for those students that are 4 or 5 years out, 2 years out. How did you get your job? Because it's more germane at their age, what they went through. So that would be something I would say about using your LinkedIn is groups, schools, interest. That expands your networking, and then just start clicking.
Perfect. Did you want to answer that one too, Harry?
Yes, I did. And I wanted to share on my screen. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
The PowerPoint slide. Okay. So, you know, there's professional groups, I mean, that the students should, you know, be you're thinking about joining. I mean, and they can still interact with these organizations even when they're, you know, all of these organizations have online presence. So, you know, depending on whether you're in accounting or HR, or if you're in culinary, I know the students are majoring in a variety of areas. So they need to be thinking about what professional organizations they can belong to when they're in school. And then as they transition, you know, these organizations provide all kinds of support and conferences and information that'll help them to learn about what they need to do to be successful and find opportunities in the space that they're working in.
Awesome.
I want to add one thing about networking. Network with your student, your peers, because you're probably going to change careers. I don't know if everybody on here, we've all kind of changed careers. So you never know, when somebody that is in a different industry all of a sudden becomes valuable. So I tell my students all the time, you need to know everybody in your class, get them connected, because you never know if you're sitting beside, Bill Gates from Microsoft, or, you just never know. And so that's an easy way to do networking, is stay in touch with your peers, follow them on LinkedIn, things like that.
Okay,
Perfect.
I have another question. Either one of or both of you guys can answer. What are some of the buzzwords that you should have on your LinkedIn page to get noticed?
Well, usually, I work with students from all industries, so I'll just Google it, for finance, for nonprofit, for whatever. I'll just Google buzzwords, because you're right. That's a really good question, George. You want those buzzwords on your resume, and you want it on LinkedIn, because there's so many robo readers now that are spitting out, canceling applications without a human even reading them. So that's a really good point. You want to find the industry buzzwords, and I just Google them, but also on your LinkedIn profile, don't forget skills. You can click up to like 50 skills. Don't make up one, but anything that's relevant, because again, it's becoming more and more automated, where when they go to look for somebody at a position, they may go, we're looking for these 10 skills. Show me everybody that has 7 of them. And you don't want to miss out because you didn't do skills. So buzzwords are important, skills are important, because that's what these computers read now. And unfortunately, that's the way things are going.
Got it. And then let's just kind of take a journey into both of your career paths. What would you all say is, Michael and Harry, are the greatest lesson you've learned, whether it be good or something that happened to you, that not necessarily that you got fired from a job, but something that happened, that an experience that was it helped shape and create and craft your journey, good or bad? What give us an example of something you've learned in business that or in your careers that has really helped where you are today, to shape where you are, so that the obvious question here is to make sure that the students know you may have a setback, you may have a detour, like you said, Michael, sometimes you switch jobs, but how that can kind of translate into something that is good down the road.
Okay, I'll take a crack at that. I mean, in my first job out of college, I'm a chemical engineer. So I was working in a polymer manufacturing plant. As you would imagine, this was back in 1984. I was one of few African Americans in this plant in Pittsburgh. I'm working with, with a lot of, obviously there were some other engineers there, but obviously people on a production line. I had to, basically manage people who were a lot older than me. And then, so, I had projects, and I'm trying to get these maintenance men to work with me to do my projects. and it was a real challenge. I mean, they say, hey, I happen to be, my degree's from Brown. I'm an Ivy League guy. So he's like, yeah, you're a smart whippersnapper. You don't know anything. They really didn't want to work with me. So I had to figure out a way to connect, and get to know them and to build a relationship. So I found out that they were bowling. They had a bowling league. I'm a fantastic bowler. So I joined the bowling league. I went to the bowling alley, and I connected with them on another way. And then after that, I never had any issues or challenges with getting them to do. They would come to me and find me at my desk. Harry, is there anything we can help you out with? So, you really got to try to get to know people and connect to them, in other ways, and really understand, their roles and responsibilities and things of that nature. But once they get to know you and they trust you, then you can really work with them effectively. And I had more knowledge, obviously, than they did about what I needed to do. But, I was the new guy on the block. I had to figure out a way to get to know them. So.
Perfect. Michael?
First of all, do you still bowl, Harry?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I keep saying I'm going to be a pro when I retire, but I haven't, been retired yet.
So your question made me start thinking, my job at UNC, I decided I wanted to go work at Carolina. I loved it. I was in the investment world for, I don't know, 30 years, whatever. And I was just burnt out. I was done with it. And I knew I wanted to come back and work in Chapel Hill. I wanted to work at UNC. I applied to 21 different jobs at North Carolina. And over a 3-year window, I applied, anything that popped up because I knew I wanted to work there. And, that's the one thing I kind of keep telling. I teach a couple classes for juniors and seniors about looking for jobs. And I talk to them, write down whatever you want to do, write down the 5 best companies that you think are your dream jobs. And I said, go after them, go after the companies. Because if you don't, the answer is no. If you do go after it, the answer is maybe. And so I preach that to kids is shoot for the moon. The worst thing they can do is say no. And I can't tell you how many students have come back and go, I got a job at SAS and I'm really not even that qualified, but you told me to apply for it and to go into the interview cocky. And so that's the one thing I would say that I learned from my most recent job, because I was independent forever. So I really wasn't working with other people, managing other people, but I just decided I wanted to work at UNC. And it took me 3 years and 21 different job applications. So if there's something out there, make them say no.
Love it. George, did you have another question? I think you said.
Go ahead if you got one, Tracey. Let me think of a good one.
Okay, so here's one that someone just texted me. They wanted to know, what are the biggest mistakes that grads make? I tell you what, we'll do this in 2 parts. So Michael, you can maybe answer the biggest mistakes grads make, and then Harry, you can answer the smartest thing you've seen grads do. Because I do think that sometimes, new grads get a bad rap sometimes, and to coin your phrase, Mike, sometimes they're too cocky, or
Right.
they think that they should have a silver platter, and they've spent $250,000 on school, so now they deserve a $250,000 job starting out of college first day. So why don't you take the first one, which is the biggest mistake that grads make, Mike, and then Harry, the smartest thing you've seen grads do.
So that's a really good question. I would say the biggest mistake students make is they think that their major and their GPA define them. You're not your major. And most employers that I talk to, they don't care what your major is. They don't care what classes you took. They care what skills you have. And what skills can you demonstrate and what do you bring to the table? So that'd be the one thing I hear over and over. People think just because I have a great GPA, just because I'm a business major, whatever, then I'm going to walk into a job. Hiring people don't think like that. They want to know what skills you have. And sometimes we've talked earlier about internships. And one of the ladies said earlier, she made a good point. I talk about it all the time. Sometimes, I use finance as an example. Sometimes you can't get a job in finance because you're just not qualified yet, early as an intern. Do something that shows leadership or teamwork. That's the 2 biggest things we hear all the time. So those are important to an employer. And again, one thing I always tell my students, they're going to be people that are smarter than you with better GPA and better experience that are applying for the job. But think about it as the person hiring. If I've got to hire you and I'm going to sit beside you for next 10 years, I don't want to work with a jack ASS. I don't care how smart he is. But if he wants to go bowling, I like to play golf. We talk about the NBA playoffs, and don't get caught up worrying about your major, your GPA, things like that. There's more to it. There's your skills. There's how you get along with people. There's, do people want to work with you?
Great. Harry?
Yes, well, I mean, I'll tell a story. I had a student who did an internship with Goldman Sachs from Morgan. And when he got there on the first day, the manager told him that he had very bad experience with students, I think specifically from Morgan, in internships. So on the first day of the internship, he's telling this young man, I really don't have real high expectations of you because, in the past, I haven't had good luck with this. So that day, the young man decided, okay, he said, yes, sir. Well, tell me what you need me to do. He took the assignment and he did a really great job. And by the end of the summer, that manager was asking him how he could go to Morgan and recruit more students. He wanted to know who else in his class was really a sharp student that might be interested in coming there. So then from that point on, they come to the school and they're recruiting 3 or 4 students each year. And, basically we had already coached and, prepared the young man not to take it personal. I mean, he knew what his skill set was. He knew what he could do. Whatever this other person's experience had been in the past, that didn't have to define, what his experience would be. So it's really like, and it goes along with what Michael says. I mean, you got to be confident in yourself and your skill set, and show up on time, work really hard, ask questions, you leverage your resources. When you don't understand something, tell them, I don't understand. I need a little more direction here, and do the best that you can. And when you do that, people recognize it. And then you can create an opportunity, for yourself to advance, as well as creating opportunities for others. So that's what I would say.
Those are both really good stories. It's interesting to me because we work with a lot of students who ask questions to us like, maybe they go to a smaller HBCU or one that's maybe not in a big metropolis like DC or Atlanta, and they don't feel like they get the love sometimes from corporations who are doing outreach or recruitment, and as well, even money that funnels through like in sponsorships and all kinds of things. And so the question that I have, which has been asked of us over and over again, if you go to a smaller HBCU or an HBCU that isn't well known, if people say it, maybe in the corporate arena they might not know it as well as some of the others, how can you level the playing field? And this is for both of you. How can you level the playing field if you're going up against PWI students, say like, UNC's or UCLA's or that sort of thing? How can you get your foot in the door and level the playing field as an HBCU student from a lesser known university, if you will?
I'll start. So two parts to your question, I would say. First of all, you're right. So you may be at a smaller school that Goldman's not visiting, things like that. You've got to go out and make hay. You've got to reach out to them directly. A Goldman, they have diversity programs, things like that. You've got to do your research and go after it yourself, because they're probably not coming to your campus. And so you've got to do that. And then the second thing goes back to what I just talked about. You've got to sell your skills. So you're right. I don't go to XYZ college, it's big or whatever, but I have this experience, I have these skills, I do this and that. So, the hardest thing, this for 35 years, I've always believed this. The hardest thing is getting in front of somebody. Mm-hmm. That's what you're trying to do with the ultimate of all these interviews, sending in resumes. You just want to get in front of somebody to tell your story. And if you can tell your story, this is my brand, this is who I am, this is my beliefs, this is my work ethic, and you do the best that you can, and they hire somebody else, that's not on you. All you got to do is the best that you can. I mean, George, this with Coach Smith, we're going to be as prepared as we can. We're going to be more prepared than anybody. The results are something that maybe are out of our control, but you can control how prepared you are. When the group before us was, when you go to interview for a company, I talk about all the time, have 5 questions ready, not where you're located, but 5 questions. So be prepared, things. That's how you can set yourself off. But yes, you may have to do more work, but it's still out there. You just got to dig a little harder and put a little more into it.
Okay, great. And did you
go
ahead?
I have a question. The last group of panelists with City, not with City, Dr. Bryant was telling us that he had a resume for each company. So he had about 5 different resumes. Is it wise to have several different LinkedIn pages depending on what corporation you are pursuing?
So that's a real good question. Different resumes, yes. LinkedIn, there's no space problem. You want to have everything on LinkedIn. So that's not a problem. Resume, yes. If you're going for a sales job, it may look like one thing. Management may look like another. Consulting may look like another. And it may only be just like 1 or 2 items. But your LinkedIn, there is no space problem. You can have everything. And you can include, I noticed, you can have on there, like if you've published things, videos, stuff like that, you can load up LinkedIn. Resumes, yes, you want to tailor it, and especially the cover letter, you want to tailor it to that individual job.
Perfect. And Harry, we wanted you to jump in here too, but we had a quick question from our student ambassador, Spencer Jones, who is at Dillard University and hosted our last Secure the Bag Career Fest. And he just popped his hand up and said he had a question for you all. So Spencer, are you there?
Yes, I am here, and thank you, Tracey, for that great introduction. I had it all prepared, but you did it for me, so thank you so much. It was definitely great to meet you, Mr. Norwood and Mr. Holt. This is a question that I always like to ask business professionals in any capacity. So if there is one thing that you know today as a business professional that you did not know when you say you were my age, I'm 20 years old, what would that one thing be and why?
Go ahead, Harry.
Okay, 1 second. Let's share. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Okay, so for me, being prepared for greatness starts with getting your education. You know, education is a great equalizer, so obviously you want to take your education seriously. And if you educate yourself, you know, and prepared and do as much as you can in terms of being ready for whatever it is you're going into, then you're going to be ready to seize and take over the opportunity, whatever that opportunity when it presents itself. If you know that you have gotten information, you've prepared in advance. I mean, I do it for any meetings that I'm going into when I want to know kind of and what I want to say and what I'm going to do. And then that's really all that you can do, Spencer. You have the education, you have information, you have something to share. You see, part of it is, you know, for me, like I wrote this book. It's kind of I guess a commercial, but I wrote this book about HBCUs. And the idea is, I believe that, you know, you can get there from here, from a historically black college or university to greatness. And I believe that you can get a great education at a HBCU and that you can sky's the limit from there. So that's what I would share in relation to your question.
Do you want to take that one too, Michael?
Well, I would just echo what Harry said about, you know, making sure you're using your education, but also there's the one thing, other things out there, there's LinkedIn Learning, things like that, where you can learn, you know, if you need to learn data management or software skills, you can learn outside the classroom, out on your own to get certified, things like that. The one thing you were saying, what would I tell 20-year-old me? That's so long ago. I think I made early on looking for jobs is I kind of went in there passively, you know, trying to get the job. Here's who I am. What I would do differently now that I've gotten older is really explain what you bring to the table more. If it's a job in media, don't just say, here's my resume and answer the questions. You got to go in there and tell them why they need to hire you. You know, I use it all the time. Why you, why me, why us? You know, why are you the right person? Why are they the right person? Why are we together the right team? So that's the thing. I didn't do a good job. I'd look for a job and just go in and go, hey, I'm qualified. How can I go in with a plan? You know, this is what I can do for you. This is why you've got to hire me or you're missing out.
Well,
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. I have one more question. Someone just texted me to ask the group. And it kind of relates to what I went over to Dubai last week and saw that the growth in how the world is becoming much smaller with social media and, you know, other countries opening up to do business. How does that help a student if he has that on his resume saying that he did an internship for 6 months abroad, help him, prepare him for the job that he's trying to get here in the States?
Well, I'll jump in. I mean, it's kind of going along with what Michael just said. I mean, it definitely differentiates him. I mean, in terms of the world is a much smaller place. So, I mean, a few years ago, I took 10 of my students from Oregon to China, to Shanghai and Beijing. And what I told these young people is, you know, the opportunity when you graduate may be in Dubai or Beijing or Italy or wherever. And once you go there and you see it, it's really not that different. I mean, obviously there's some things different culturally, but when it comes to doing business and the other things that you do, it's not that different. And if you've had those experiences, now you differentiate yourself because you're showing that you're ready to deal with more diverse markets, diverse people, all kinds of things that you can adjust to, and it puts you in a much stronger position than somebody else who hasn't had those kinds of experiences.
And I'll add to that real quick. The biggest thing right now we hear from employers is being adaptable and being flexible. And that's part of it. If you spent 6 months in China, if you spent, somewhere else, you couldn't take your beliefs and your culture over there and go, this is how I'm going to do it the way that they are. And that's why companies are so much interested in diversity of gender, of race, of geography, because everybody comes at problems from a different history. I mean, we all kind of shaped by our history. And if a company has the same people with the same thinking, they come up with the same solutions for problems, and you may never increase the problems. You want people from, this is part of, I'm acting like I'm in an interview. You want to be able to have different thoughts, different experiences to go, I disagree with that because I learned this, I learned that. This is a different approach. If not, everybody has the same opinion and you never really go forward.
Well, that I agree with both of you. And I actually want to just say this has been such an insightful panel. Even though I'm not currently looking for a job, I'm taking notes because if I ever do, I'm going to reflect back on these things. I think persistence, Michael, when you were talking about if you want to work somewhere, you got to attack it from every angle. And really persistence, it seems to be the name of the game today, and just making sure that you never give up. And I appreciate that. And Harry, in the same way, persistence on your end with the student, this story you told about the student who made sure that he gave not only himself, but Morgan State a great reputation for hiring more great interns. And sometimes I think we do have to make sure that we're thinking about more than just ourselves because we're building legacies behind us. And you two both have just kind of really put an exclamation point on both of those as part of securing the bag. So thank you both so very much. We hope we can call on you further in the summer. We're going to be doing this all summer. We're securing the bag. So we hope that we can have you all back. Okay, perfect. And then
like I said, Tracy, I'll put my email in there. If anybody wants to ask me individual questions, feel free to email me, link with me on LinkedIn, whatever. I'm here to help however I can.
Well, thank you, Michael, for that. And thank you for being here. And we'll look forward to seeing you at some point, I guess at a Carolina game or something, somewhere down the line. And
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Harry,
we invite you too, Harry. You're on the road here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, Tracy and I are
from
home,
Pittsburgh.
so
We're gonna go to a Steelers game because we're from Pittsburgh. So there we go. So yeah, we don't even worry about it. Okay, well, thank y'all both so very much. And with that, we will bid you adieu and happy Friday. And then George.